Why do you want them to listen to your podcast?
So that when they think about starting a business, they've got the content that is pointing them in the right direction.
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
The change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Star.
You've grown from zero to filling your schedule up to having, I'm going to say, other employees that are active on the tools.
Yep.
It's a decent sized business. And other people, myself included, would sit there and go, that is insurmountable in my mind. My mindset doesn't facilitate the idea of growing a business to that size that quickly. And one of the reasons that makes a difference is because all those things you were talking about at the start of the podcast, about having those systems in place, about being profitable and having the core values of the business in place, and not just having them in place, but actually reviewing them and going, okay, are these things where they need to be so that the business is doing what it needs to do? This is unachievable on most people's level in our industry simply because of mindset, simply because their mindset is, my mindset has been, I work for myself and I treat myself as an employee rather than a business owner.
Okay. I'm glad you said mindset out of that, because I believe wholeheartedly that is the only difference.
Well, there's no reason why anybody starting this business couldn't do what you've done.
In less than 2 years, definitely.
Yeah.
And sustainably. We can all say we've all taken on more than what we can do, but we are more than sustainable.
Yep.
But this gets reviewed monthly as well.
Yeah.
And people go, I don't have time for that. Well, do you not have time for it?
Yeah.
It's as equally important as turning up to little old lady's house at 9 o'clock, like you said you would.
Well, the mindset I see that ruins this, and I've been guilty of doing it. I've tried to get myself out of that hole, but I've been guilty of doing it, is working for less money than we're worth and just thinking we can work harder. So I'm pretty proud of making sure I have a work hard ethic, and that's the core value of my business. I will just work harder. I will do 12-hour days, 14-hour days, and not picking on anybody that does this. If you feel bad for doing it, it's because it's a problem, not because I'm saying it.
That's the dead set
truth. If you're working 12-hour days and 14-hour days and you're not making enough money, then have a think about it.
Yeah, well, I think we're at the point where I could not work so hard, but then the business wouldn't be where it is if I didn't. So could I step away right now and we'd be okay? Yeah, I could. I've got certain jobs that only I can go to.
Yeah.
Because they want a level of service that I just don't think it's fair. Well, yeah, I just don't think it's fair. And plus the security clearances and stuff like that. So,
but a lot of people, that is the only jobs they have, where their customer expects them to be on site and no one else. If somebody else is on site, then it's a problem, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct. So, but I could step away. I could step away from such a role, but then I think part of my team's work ethic is seeing the leader out there in the trenches.
Yeah.
So I think that's very, very important. I pride myself on being the hardest worker out of the team. Am I? Don't know. But it doesn't matter, because my core value is to be the hardest worker and lead by example.
Yeah.
I would be more than happy to help anyone try and reach a 7-figure business.
Yeah.
Anyone. Because I think I love watching people succeed. I love watching my guys succeed. I pay for extra courses when they want them. Like, people in our industry don't do that.
Yeah.
They don't do that. But I see the value in that.
I was a fair way into my business before I decided that working longer days was not working.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, if I can't finish by 2 or 3 in the afternoon and be profitable, then I'm not going to be profitable by working more hours.
No.
So if I start 7 o'clock in the morning or earlier and I finish by 2 or 3 in the afternoon. That's a business model that's attractive for not just me, but my employees, because my employees get to go, oh, okay, I'm interested in this where I don't have to go home after 5 p.m, worn out, and can't have a family life.
Well, again, I think we briefly spoke about my pay system for my guys.
Yeah.
They're heavily incentivized. My two main guys, I would doubt there is no one in the industry, right?
Yeah.
Not owners, not owner operators.
Yep.
I mean employees that are paid as high as they are.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. I can bring it up. It's nothing for my guys to take home 1,500, 1,800, $2,000 a week. And people go, how is that possible? I'll assure you it is possible.
Yeah.
And what I try to do is I build mini-me's, I guess. I don't like the term of that. And I hope people don't see that as egotistic. But what I'm saying is no one works harder in your business except you.
Yeah.
It's the truth. It's the truth. You can't expect your employee to.
Yeah.
So what I try and do is empower them to be in the business as their business.
Yeah.
And it's paid dividends for me because
Yep.
Is the company making as much money as it could? No, but my guys will never leave. And their quality of work is phenomenal because they're paid accordingly.
So if we give away a couple of secrets here, I have talked about this once or twice where I've suggested that the best employees are not actually employees. Now, you can call it different names, but I will liken it to being a Jim's franchise or any other franchise you might pick up. McDonald's does the same thing, right? If you own a McDonald's franchise, as opposed to a corporate McDonald's store, the owner of the franchise is invested because they own. And you can treat somebody like an employee, but give them ownership of their job or ownership of their results, so they get remunerated for results, or you can treat them as a subcontractor, or you can treat them as a franchisee.
Mm-hmm.
Either which way, we're talking about the same thing. I think this is where you're going, right, with your employees. Your guys work for you on a system where they get remunerated accordingly.
Correct.
And I think that's incredibly valuable to go, okay, and I think you can do this as an employee just by having the pay structure done right. Or you can do it by separating it out and going, okay, you're not actually an employee, you are an independent business or a franchise.
Look, a lot of people would see it as a headache, and a lot of people would see it as, I've had a lot of my trade mates even say to me, you are mad.
Yeah.
The results are there.
Yep.
You know, people are motivated by money. That's why you go to work.
Yeah.
I said that before. You don't tell me anyone. I know work gives a lot of other benefits besides money. Don't get me wrong. I work 1,000 hours a day, it feels like. I don't have days off. My email address is actually no days off at myself.com.
Yep.
And that's the truth, right?
I saw it.
So, yeah, you did, you did see it. So I see that as a very good investment, not necessarily how much the companies are making, but look at the investment.
Yeah.
Again, what does that come back to? It's that M word mindset. And I don't have unhappy guys that work for me. I don't. I just don't.
There are people that won't thrive in that system.
100% correct. So I've had one. I've got one.
You've got to find the right people.
Well, yeah, but that's dancing to your beat of your own drum too, right? That's like, I don't like it. No one will work for me, or I don't want people working for me that don't fit the core values. Yeah. And I think that in itself is like an easy thing to weed out. You know, I'm not talking about the guy who is casual and only wants to 1 day a week, you know, but pull my guys from military, fire, security. So I already have guys that are team players.
Yeah.
That plays a big role in my life. So I have a set sort of not a set criteria, that's incorrect, but I already have character traits that I look for. And sometimes we don't have the option of those things, like where do most people seek? Like they use Seek or they use Facebook or something like that, So, I think a lot can be said about who you employ though, right?
Oh, yeah. I was talking to somebody last week about this. I was like, if you're struggling with employees, maybe you need to be, instead of trying to hire somebody who's got the skills to mow grass, maybe you need to hire somebody who's got the skills of a manager or a team leader and then teach them how to cut grass.
Because look, greenkeepers might say otherwise, right?
Yeah, sure.
But anyone can learn how to cut grass. I'm not talking about SCG, cylinder mow, level lawn. I'm not saying that. But the average resi lawn that's just happy long as it's cut, I believe you can teach that to anybody.
Yeah.
I do believe that.
There is a place for a greenkeeper in your business, but...
Most definitely. No question. But does he have to be at every residential property?
No.
If he's mowing using the exact same mower as I am at the same height on the same property going the same way, are you going to know it was a greenkeeper?
I think it's kind of like if you hire a chef in a kitchen, right? You're hiring somebody who is going to be temperamental and difficult to work with, but you need them in the kitchen.
Well, you can't say a chef's in the building. It's not chef made without a chef, right?
Yeah. So you've got to hire a chef. And likewise, in a lawn care business, you may or may not need to. If you're aiming for the SCG or you're aiming for a golf course, you're going to need a greenkeeper, right?
No question, yeah.
But if you're building a business where your core values are, we do the best job, the best quality, we make your grass better than the neighbour's grass, then you're going to have a conflict of interest between your core values and their core values when you're trying to build it on who knows the more information, who's better at cutting grass, you or your greenkeeper that works for you.
Correct. That is correct. You can't compare the two. You can't compare a viticulturalist to someone that's worked in the vineyards for 20 years, right? Because like one's got a certificate to say they're a viticulturalist, the other one knows everything plus some.
Yeah.
But where we started from this was about managerial sort of character traits, and it's pretty hard to teach people how to be a manager.
Yeah.
I think people are either born leaders and need to be molded to manage.
Yep.
Where I can teach someone how to mow in a day.
Yeah.
So going back to where we went off at a bit of a tangent, but rightfully so though, because we brought up other points. But you can't. Not everyone's a manager. Not everyone is, and it's unfortunate. But then that's what makes the world go by too, right? Like, so teaching someone how to be a manager is a lot harder than teaching someone how to do a full lawn reno.
That's it. So yeah, finding the right people for your business means you need to be looking in the right place.
But that's where I think your core values are most important when you're looking for other people.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have them set, and as we said, reliability, that shouldn't be a core value. That should be communication. That shouldn't be a core value. That should be a non-negotiable, right?
Right.
So that's where I come back to. There's nothing wrong with a small business behaving like a big business.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will let themselves down. Call it mindset, call it not sure what to do, calling it not seeing the value in it.
I think I've been guilty of tying my own noose in that regard, of making a small business small.
Okay, yep.
Limiting it, making it only 2 postcodes, or making it so the core values are limiting what the business is actually capable of achieving.
Yeah, yeah. But you can't say, I want to be finished by 2:00 in the day and only do 8 jobs, but complain about not turning over $1 million, right? Like,
Right.
it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I see that a lot in this industry as well. You
Yeah.
know, I do see that a lot. I see a lot of negative talks between, well, at people succeeding, and
Yep.
like anything in life, you'll say, "Oh, I can cut grass better than that. That's a shit job." Well,
Yep.
the guy's got the contract.
And
Are
that,
have we been too critical, or has he got the contract? Because you know what, the proof's in where the money
I was
is.
going to say exactly that. The proof is that he's got the contract, which means how good the quality is not the most important thing there.
Correct. And I think a lot of people will forget that. How many times have you gone back to the same place and the coffee's been all right, or the food's been all right? I'll give you an example. McDonald's. How many times has your order been messed up? Tell me.
I try and avoid going to McDonald's for that reason.
Yep. But
That and it's not so healthy.
you still go.
Sure.
Reliability,
Nope.
always there. It's always crap, but you always know what you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
It's not about quality of food. It's not about, so let's refer that. It's not about the quality of the cut of the grass.
Yeah.
But is Joe Blow there every time and sends a text the day before, and then and does he send him a thank you, and does he say Merry Christmas and stuff like that? He probably does.
Yeah.
And that's and that's that people might see that as unfortunate,
Yeah.
but I think that is equally, if not more important than the quality of the cut. Now, people go, "Oh, there'll be people on the podcast that'll go, oh, that's bullshit, mate. You talk about, come and have a look at my grass." Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, though? Like, there's a big gap in between, but I don't know. It's.
I've noticed when quality makes a difference, and this is a shortcoming of my own that I've had, but it's proof that this is what makes the biggest difference. It's not the quality. If I've done a job for a customer for more than 12 months, and then I have an employee do that job, straight up, the customer starts looking at the quality. Why is it? It's not because of the quality. It's because the relationship changed.
Correct. That is so true.
Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage, and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages, and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money, season after season.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I found that earlier on. That's actually a good point. I never really thought about that before. I found that a lot earlier on.
Yeah.
And now I have the set guys that sort of go to their jobs, if that makes sense. So they're now me.
Yep.
Not everyone accepts it.
No.
Don't get me wrong, but I've tried to. I try and set it up for them to be they're the guy now.
Yeah.
And that is an extremely hard thing I've had to deal with because of my but the way I sort of service a client,
Yeah.
the way I sort of service anyone I'm speaking to. And it's not bad that the boys don't have the same level.
No.
It's just their way of doing things. But
Yep.
It's funny you brought that up because I'd sort of forgotten about that. Sounds poor, but
Yeah.
I have encountered that. But the transition has been really good. They'll not call me. They won't call my partner. They'll just talk to one of the boys now.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people say you've got to be careful because if they start their own run and then they can take the client off you. But
Yeah.
That could happen tomorrow too with the guy next door that knocks on the door and says, "I'll do it for $20."
That's going back to hiring the wrong people.
100% correct. And look, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, right? And our industry isn't really a high-paying industry. It's not. Let's for the 42-degree day to be covered in dust, grit, grime, for having like grass in your eyes, grass in your bloody shorts. Your gaiters weren't on properly, so now it's in your socks.
Yep.
You're sunburnt. You can barely keep up the electrolytes, even though you're drinking electrolytes. It's hot. You're hungry. You don't want to eat. It's pretty poor pay.
Oh, yeah.
It's extremely. Do I think it's a hard job? No, I don't.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying it has extremities, which I believe it should be a higher pay. So I pay my guys accordingly.
Yeah.
And it seems to work for us because I don't think it's a hard job. In saying that, though, I'm licensed to do 13-meter trees, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So, being on an end of a saw and chopping trees all day and dragging them and stuff can be quite draining.
Yep.
But that's not every day either. I'm not an arborist. It's not something I do every day. But yeah, I guess it's not in hiring the right guys. And you know what? I might sound like I just hire the right guys, but I've hired plenty in my short 2-year span of this business that haven't been the right fit. Now, I'm talking about over 20 years of business prowess condensed into 2 years. So I've taken a lot from those 20 years and brought it in. So it might sound like I've got all the answers, but fundamentally I don't. But I have a bit of background in business.
I guess what's interesting there, and not putting you up on a pedestal completely, but to a degree we are, you've taken life lessons from 20 years and you've managed to build a pretty decent business in 2 years. So it does represent something that a lot of people can't achieve. But at the same time, what you're saying is really, really important there. The skills you've got and the way you apply that doesn't mean it's magic. And it doesn't mean that it's foolproof or that anybody can do it. You've had to go through finding the right employees by getting some wrong employees and then knowing how to move them on when they're the wrong employees.
It's same as machinery, right? Don't tell me one contractor that's bought something that thought, oh, I'll use it all the time. It's amazing. It's going to save me the time in the world. And you're like, I used it twice this season.
I bought a $20,000 excavator and I sold it 2 years later because it was waste of money.
I've got a $40,000 one that's still at my mate's house. That shows you how much I use it, right? But it's like anything. But a lot of people, I believe, as well, is going back to mindset as well. A lot of people don't believe they have transferable skills.
Yeah.
A lot of people are coming from, as you said, somewhere that they're not happy with.
Yep.
And they've got a mower, or they like doing what's the big one I see? They like doing their own lawn.
Yeah.
They love it, and they think, well, you know what, I could, I read all the jargon and I'm on every Facebook group and I buy every of the pre-post, this, that.
Yep.
What I'm getting at is they've got they've got a hobby. They've, and nothing wrong with making money from a hobby. But a lot of those guys I speak to, they don't feel they have any transferable skills. But in retrospect, everyone has transferable skills.
Yep.
To this industry.
I think
I find the older guys do a bit better.
Yeah. Yeah.
The younger guys seem to be a little bit, maybe it's their spending, maybe it's the not. I think it's a lot to do with communication. We're about the same age. So,
yeah,
we weren't brought up with text messages.
No.
If I rang you, you couldn't see who it was on the phone. You just picked it up and answered the phone, right?
That's right. There were all sorts of pranks that went on with the old landlines.
Yeah, and how many times today have you screened calls? I've had half a dozen calls I haven't answered today because I have the opportunity to. But years ago, I'd pick it up and answer, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about a whole generational change as well. And, communication is massive in our industry. People say, I don't want to talk to the old woman with that little bit of extra time because I don't have the time. Well, I get that.
Yeah.
You got to think about customer service then too, right? Because it is a customer service industry. Yes, you're solving a problem, but it's a customer service industry.
Yeah. So this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They go into it with the mentality of being a technician. So if you think of the different roles in a business, most people have an entrepreneurial moment. And you might recognize this from a book called The E-Myth.
Yeah.
They have an entrepreneurial moment. They then put their manager into gear for 5 minutes to go, okay, this is what the business should look like. And then they let their technician run the business. So their technician, like you said, is the person who's obsessed with their own lawn or knows all of the skills to cut grass or cut a hedge or whatever it is, but they don't actually know how to run a business. And so they're so focused on, I can be the best in the industry when it comes to how to cut grass, rather than I can be the best in the industry when it comes to how to run a business. And that's where your story is a little bit different, because you've got that experience of how to run a business and then you've applied it to a lawn care industry.
Which my belief, and people might think otherwise, I think all business fundamentals are the same. And there's no reason you can't run a McDonald's franchise or open up a mechanic workshop or run a successful mowing business. I think it's about getting the basics right. And, does it make money? Does it make sense? That's a simple thing, right?
But if you don't have somebody leading that mechanic workshop who knows how to make sure it's making money, how many mechanic workshops shut down much the same as lawn care businesses?
It's exactly the same. And as you said about the Facebook groups that are sort of, supporting one another and stuff like that, I've seen as much positivity as I've seen passive-aggressive negativity.
Yeah.
On that. So I don't spend much time on social media because of that, even though there's a lot of people I'd love to reach out to, and not saying I could help or I can't help, but there's just some people I could just see are craving some input.
Yeah.
I guess some non-judgmental input.
Yeah.
There's some pretty successful guys in the industry that are just shit humans.
Are you thinking of leaving your job to start a profitable and enjoyable lawn and garden business? Aussie Lawn Stars shares stories, lessons, and advice to help you grow a healthy, productive, efficient, and sustainable business. Got questions or want more information? Contact Aussie Lawn Stars at iCloud.com or reach out to Gary Ashton on Facebook or Messenger for personal help. But beware, your question may end up in a podcast episode. For business coaching that ensures the right mindset and decision-making approach, check out Think Tank Coaching. Their website is https://thinktankcoaching.com.au. They've been instrumental in helping me and can guide you towards achieving your business goals. You can also email them at thinktankcoaching@outlook.com. Need to set up best practices for bookkeeping, accounting, and business structure? Contact Adrian from Prosper Financial at 02 4977 3363. And don't forget to join Lawn Mowing Contractors Australia and Australian Professional Lawn Contractors Facebook groups. Great supportive communities focused on our industry. That I typically recommend, if somebody wants to grow their business, that they not exclude themselves from the lawn care community, but that they deliberately choose to find people who are good at running business rather than people who know how to cut grass. You'd need to hang out with people who know how to run business.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. With my other businesses, that's what I've done. I've only sort of tried to gain experience from people that are just seasoned veterans.
Yeah.
So I think that is a very strong point. Now, this is industry's it can be egotistic.
Oh, yeah.
And, how many of these people that would say, oh, mate, I'll help anyone out, that would actually help someone out,
Yeah.
Yep. And you know what? Just because they don't doesn't mean they're bad people.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It just means that, they're just not that way inclined.
Well, when the majority of the industry is made up of people who are basically technicians at heart, they are super focused on how to do their job well, not how to run their business well.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with.
Well, it's easier to be a technician than run a business, I believe.
It's also
for that, but that's okay.
It's really easy when you're a technician to fall into the religious trap of I'm right and you're wrong.
Well, you know what? That's very true, and that's something I've actually come across. I haven't known as much as the guy before me, but it was the way I dealt with it, and spent the extra time to do the research, I guess, because no one knows everything. I don't care who you are; you don't know everything. But it's the way you deal with that too, right? Like, I have a set fee when I deal with Strata, for instance, right? Like, let's say Strata gets me to go somewhere to quote, generally my partner quotes, which is very unusual in this industry as well. But part of her operational role is to go and quote.
Yep.
A lot of people go, but she's already building relationships, right? Like, she's builds a relationship. If I'm called to go out there, I generally, if it's an issue, I fix.
Yep.
But if I'm called to go and re-talk about the quote and changing the quote, I charge a certain amount of money per hour.
Yeah.
Unheard of in this industry. But if you're pulling me off a job because you want to change a job, why is it any different than a plumber?
Yeah.
Like, you call a plumber now. What is it, after 5, is it? Yeah, call a plumber now. You're going to have to pay a call-out fee.
Yep.
Why is it different for our industry? It's not. It's not. It's no different. And that's the way my business has been. Now, I don't mean Dorothy, who lives next door and her cat's stuck in the bloody tree. I don't mean that.
Yeah.
But I do see us as just as important as the after-hours plumber.
Yeah, and this comes up a lot in terms of how you charge for quoting. Do you just build it into the cost of the job? Do you go, okay, I know I'm going to spend 20% of my time or 5% of my time quoting, so I'm going to elevate my prices to cover that time that I'm not able to work on the job? And not just quoting, but chasing payments from people has been one of those things that absolutely hurt me when I was early in business. So just continuously chasing people who were slack at paying. I was like, I'm wasting so much time. Get a credit card machine. If you don't have cash, put your card here. If you don't have your card here, you're not a customer.
Well, that's where my Erica, the operations manager, she has her own someone that's chasing.
Yeah.
Every Monday morning I get a text message, even though we share a house.
Yeah.
I get a text message of where we're standing, where we're financially standing, what's outstanding across all businesses.
Yeah.
Any sort of issues that are overlying that I need to be touched. And it's not like people are bad payers, but we're talking about developers. We're talking about a lot of people. When I say real estate, people go, yeah, I do a couple of real estate jobs. I probably do thousands, okay?
Yeah.
So chasing, sometimes the real estate pays, sometimes the owner pays, sometimes there's a breakdown of communication. Yep. So what I'm getting at, I don't have any bad payers because I'm pretty stern from the start of what it is about.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. For people to say that I'm not carrying a company 30 days or 60 days is living in the past because they've never dealt with corporate or any sort of business, because that's kind of normal to wait 30 days up to 60 days for a payment. And if you think it's not, get with the times, because it's not, I do the job today, I'm getting paid today.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's what shits me as well with this back and forward on the Facebook as well. I know we're going on a different path, but that's another thing that really irks me, because I think, mate, you don't know the world then.
Yeah.
You don't know the world. That's how it is. So
Yep.
we have someone who does a lot of things like that for us, like Erica does for her.
Yeah.
And they're literally, she's I guess it's called chasing, but she's basically getting in the ear and just saying, "How you going? Like,
Yep.
we're a day overdue. Like, where we
Yeah.
traveling with that?" And
Yep.
and people would go, "Oh, you pay that woman X, Y, Z." I couldn't do what that woman does, so it's worth every cent.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the system in place.
Yeah.
You know, and she does other things. If she's got nothing to do for that one, she'll come over to our other businesses and do that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
again, that's having the systems in place again. So I'm not bogged down. Erica's working at an operational standpoint.
Yep.
And not ringing people up.
Yeah.
But to simplify it, as you said, the guy that's doing the 10 resis a day, 15 resis a day, those card readers are $150. Like, what? And if you're worried about tax, I can help you how to get around that. You know what I mean? You just change the account every 3 days. You know, you log in, change your account where the money goes to. So
Yeah.
You can't even say that anymore. There are certain ways around it, but money management is a skill.
Yeah.
And I don't mean money. There's money rolling, which is what you have in your bank account versus intakes and outtakes. But that constant chasing of money and stuff like that is, you got to nip it in the bud when it happens. Like, it's just, you teach people how to treat you. It's my philosophy for life through business. It is what it is.
It comes down to the systems you have in your business, or the lack of systems when it comes to money that's outstanding. And like you say, there's plenty of clients that you want that have 30-day and 60-day accounts. They're good clients, but that's money outstanding, and you've got to deal with that's the way that is if you want that client. Otherwise, you're dealing with residential cash handover.
And I see it so often. Oh, how can they, expect us to lay over 30 days not payment? If you don't have, and I'll go out on a limb, and I don't care if I cop some flack for this. This is fine. I'm happy for you to put up all my social medias and stuff like that if that's the case, or write for you to write to me. If you don't have enough money in your business to tie you over for 30 days, don't look at the business's 30-day payment procedure. Maybe look at your day-to-day spending or earnings, because 30 days isn't long in a pay cycle.
Yeah.
And people go, yeah, I'm starting out, I'm struggling, this and that.
Yep.
Well, if you have the systems in place, you know that's a 30-day job. No one ever gives you a contract and goes, oh, guess what? After 6 months, we're paying every 30 days. It's pretty stipulated from the beginning.
Yeah.
Most people just go, yeah, I'll do it. I'll be right.
Yep.
And then you generally found, what I've found is people have bought the new machine.
Yeah.
Where's your money gone that's tying you over? It's in a machine.
I've been guilty of this, right? If you've got one business bank account, you look at $20,000 sitting in your business bank account and you go, I could buy a new Right Standard B. It's not going to hurt anyone. I've still got $5,000 in the bank. But if you've got multiple business bank accounts, you look at that $20,000 and you go, oh, wow, there's $18,000 sitting in my GST BAS statement account, and there's $2,000 sitting in my operations account. I've got a problem. But
how many vehicles have I got? I'm trying to think how many vehicles I've got. 3 vans, a tipper, and a ute.
Yeah.
And a trailer. And conditional rego on a couple of the mowers. So $20,000 in the account.
It's
pay the rego.
It's accounted for already, right? But this is the problem, is if you don't account for your money properly, then the human nature, I've had the human nature most people have when they're starting out or they're solo or they're on their own, is if there's money there, oh, maybe I should spend it on something. And if you account for it properly, you go, okay, well, what I've got to spend out of that 20 grand is actually $5.
Correct. So don't go to the mower shop. Don't go see what's out new.
No.
Go in, get your cord,
Yep.
get your parts, and get out of there.
Yeah.
Like it's finance is too easy these days.
Yep.
You and I can go get up to $250,000 right now. You've had your ABN longer than 2 years. I've had mine longer than 2 years. We can pretty much get no doc 250K business, spend what we want.
Yeah.
That's too easy these days. And then I see it all the time. People getting the money, and do you need it? Well, maybe.
Is it building your business to make the amount of money it needs to cover the cost of that machine and actually be profitable? No.
A lot of these questions need to be asked. I think like that. But
yeah,
that's all businesses, let's be honest. But I just think this is the one business that I could honestly say you can make $1 million from not much.
Yep.
I'm looking down at eye to eye to you down the camera.
Yep.
It's not many businesses. Well, there is some, but you go open a shop with the amount of money that you can be a contractor with, not a franchisee.
Yeah.
Not a franchisee. Most people have a ute or something like that, or like you can use your ute. You can use your ute. You can get a box trailer you can even get a 6x4 box trailer to put a ride on. Like it doesn't have to be lock up cabinets. It doesn't have to be.
Yep. Two grand will get you started.
100%.
Yeah.
And flying. There's not many businesses that you can start for $2,000 and be pretty confident, well, not confident, but pretty assured if you do the right things, you're going to turn $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's
name a couple of others. Like, I'm all ears.
Most of the other businesses that you could say there are equally cowboys as well as really good, well-operated businesses, you still need a trade. So you're talking plumber, electrician, chippy, whatever it is, you need a trade and licensing. And then there's incredible ownership on some of those in terms of the amount of capital they need to be able to roll those businesses. So you're talking in the building trade, the amount of equity you need to be able to operate and not go bankrupt is huge.
Huge. Well, look at coffee carts or ice cream trucks back in the day.
Yeah.
You used to make a mozza, right?
Yeah.
But now you need bloody food handling, right? You need the government approval to rent the space down the shop, and that's more than $2,000.
Yep.
You can't do much, but it is certainly possible with this trade. And I think there are a lot of operators out there that would love to do the six figures. I don't know many that wouldn't. Wouldn't you? But may never reach that only because of them. I guess in that sense,
I'm actively encouraging listeners to aim for six figures. You should be aiming for, if you're not doing $80,000 turnover working in this industry full time on your own, then you're really not making ends meet. If you're serious about it, $120,000, $150,000 turnover is easily achievable.
I think so.
And there's plenty of solo guys out there that are doing well over $200,000 solo. So achievable, six figures. If you want to hit seven figures, then you need to start looking at a few different things to do what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that's right. But it's easy to make seven. It's easier to make seven from six than it is from six from zero, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's my strategy. That's my theory. A lot of people might go, "Oh, it's good for you," whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care. But if you've made six from zero, I'm pretty sure you're going to make seven from six. Like, it's fundamentally the same kind of thing, but you've learned some experiences along the way, right?
I'm gonna argue with you on this one.
Really? Okay.
And this is a good point to wrap up the podcast. We're about to hit 3 hours.
Oh, no wonder I'm hungry.
To get from 6 figures to 7 figures, you have to change your mindset.
If your mindset hasn't changed from 0 to 6 figures,
But
you're on the wrong path to anywhere, I think.
you can probably get to 6 figures just by being really good at cutting grass. But you can't get to 7 figures without having really good employees.
I'm talking high sixes. I'm not talking just
Yeah, true.
six. I'm talking the one before the 7.
Yep.
You've learned a lot by then. You had to have. You've got systems in place by then. You've got to have.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying. You can't do it as a solo. Well,
yeah. So to go from solo, which you're going to cap out at around the $150,000 to $200,000 mark, most likely, to having multiple employees, and then you're aiming for rolling numbers instead of just the $100,000 mark, $200,000 mark. So. Yeah, where you actually have the potential to go to 7 figures, you've got to have the mindset of how to deal with employees and how to grow a business that is multiplying.
But that's where your systems are big, right?
You can't do without them.
You can't do it. I don't think if you've got one employee, you need a systems.
Yep. Well, if you don't have the systems in place, then they're not an employee. They're an offsider, and you dump them the moment winter comes.
And there you go. And then it's back to hiring a 17-year-old kid, which is nothing wrong with that, all right? But you're back to that can't drive the manual car, or he's sitting beside you, It's
a cycle where the moment you have an injury, like I've got at the moment, then you're potentially out of business.
Correct. It's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So... yeah, okay. I never thought about that like that, but you are right. You're potentially out of business, where I know I'd be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yep.
I could continue this, to be honest with you. I could do another 3 because I think this industry and what we're talking about is so vast.
Yeah.
And there's so many players in it, from cowboys to people that are sort of getting there.
Yeah.
And I'm not finished yet. I haven't made it. I ain't finished. I'm telling you right now, I'm working on stuff as we speak. Daily, I'm working on stuff.
Yep.
So I think what you're doing is great.
Thanks.
It's just so vast.
Well, I think the listeners will be a telling story, and I would suggest that the listeners would love to hear from you again as you keep changing and doing things differently in your business, and be worthwhile to look at doing another interview somewhere down the track.
Well, I'm pretty big with connections.
Yeah.
In that sense, I'm big on that. So you and I are connected now, and I'm sure our paths will verbally, if not physically, cross again. It's inevitable.
I intend on making that happen.
Yeah, good, because I have the same passion for people as you do about people's success through the industry.
Yeah.
And I think the more people that are on board with that, it does help the young players coming through. It does help when I say young players, I mean the guy who's 40 that's decided to do it. That's a young player in the industry, right? Like, I'm a young player. I'm not a seasoned vet, but I tell you what, I could write a book about my mistakes in this industry already.
If you have thought about leaving a job and starting a business, but you haven't made that decision yet, then your mindset is still young in that industry and young in business. Once you actually start processing that and going, oh, what do I need to know about business? You start learning. And as you start learning, you grow.
You got to be uncomfortable to grow, mate.
Yep.
It's just the bottom line. And just like we train our grass to grow a certain way, we train ourselves to think a certain way.
Yeah.
And I don't know, hope the listeners can see that mindset. I believe that mindset is yours, mine, our biggest hurdle. It's not the clients. It's not. It's not our. It's not about more customers. It's about your mindset.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app. or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.